Warning, the following video contains strong language which may be offensive to some viewers and/or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only. Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. So happy to be here. So excited to introduce you to two more fabulous authors. I can't wait until you meet them. They both have very interesting books and a lot to share with us. Also, I'd like to remind you, just as you saw in the video, that we're now on TV, streaming live on WLFE-DB.com. We have 3 different channels: the Variety Unlimited, which you find us on, and also LGBTQ Friends and Paranormal View. And we have a lot of great shows that are on all of those channels. Also, while you're watching the show, please remember to like, share, follow, and comment. We love your comments. This is really your show.
And speaking of shows, as you were, next week we won't have a show, won't have a live show. We'll be camping instead. April 21st, though, the following Wednesday, we're going to have 2 really interesting guests, multi-genre, but mostly mystery author Cheryl Payton, the Alex Trotter mystery series that she writes, and then also author Jim Hartzell, who's the children's and young adult author, has multilingual books, which is really cool. Then April 28th, the last Wednesday of the month, we're going to have our first ever UK Authors Night. And we're going to have the United Kingdom authors Paul Coode, who's a fantasy author, and British crime author Bobby Barker. And those should be really good. Now, just a note, when you go to the pinned post for our show, when you first see that, go ahead and hit the reminder button. And then Facebook is very generous with sending out the reminders for the show. Without further ado, we would like to bring out our first guest tonight, and it's author D.H. CERMENO.
And you.
And we're going to bring him in right now. Come on in.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you all so much, and thank you for having me on today.
Thank you for being on. He kept saying menu because, he kept saying, now, how do I say that, his last name? And I kept saying CERMENO with an O.
Yes.
Then he said CERMENO.
I did it again. Sorry.
It's all good.
Well, at least you know who you are.
Yes, well, thank you.
We want them to know who you are,
Absolutely.
too.
Absolutely.
All right. So how about if you tell us a little bit about how you got into writing?
Absolutely. So I had always, even as a child, loved to write. Whenever I would, in my English classes, anytime that we would have a creating writing project, it was always one of my favorites. And a lot of times I would think to myself, I never really considered myself a writer. I consider myself a storyteller because I always loved to tell stories. That was always my favorite. And my parents even told me the same thing. And I always used to love to listen to my grandfather because he loved telling stories, as did my great uncles and such. So I wanted to follow in their footsteps. But when I graduated from college, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I took a trip to Japan and I taught English there for a year. And the whole time that I was there, I thought this really would make a great story. So I kept diaries. And when I moved back to the United States, I said, I think I'm going to write a novel. And this was right after I had gotten back from finished with graduate school. And as part of the graduate program, they gave us all a laptop. So at the end of my year doing my graduate work, I thought, well, what am I going to do with the laptop? I mean, my parents and we never really had computers in the house growing up. So I referred back to what in the Kaufman and Hart play, You Can't Take It With You, where Penny Sycamore decides that she's going to write plays because 8 years before, a typewriter had been delivered to the house by mistake. So I followed in her shoes. And so I took my diary, and that's where I created my first novel, Rising Sunset.
Nice.
And so that was the whole thing. And it was a labor of love because it was a story that was very personal to me. And it was something that I really wanted to get down on paper. But soon thereafter, I was thinking about my next project of what I was going to do because I enjoyed the process so much. And I had something very sad that took place, and it was my great uncle had passed away. And he and I were very, very close after my grandfather had passed away when I was young. So I wanted to tell a story about their impact on my life, but I didn't want to do it as a novel. And I thought to myself, how am I going to do this? So I explored a different way of actually telling a story. And that's when I went down the road of doing it as a children's style book, because I wanted to explore death, and I wanted to explore whenever you have a confidant or a mentor or a rock that's so close to you, what do you do to remind yourself of the strength and the confidence they gave you when they were alive, now that they're gone? So I remembered I had seen this one book years before called Love You Forever. And I remembered that it was a book that the story did not seem to me like it was a children's book, but it was done as a children's book. And I thought, let me do this in that same vein. And then that's how Coffee and Cedar, my second book, came into play. So I haven't really found my niche as far as what I like to do, but so at first I went from a novel and now I went to a children's style book, but each one is a wonderful journey that I enjoy.
Before we go much further, let's get the information about the giveaway.
Yes. Yes.
There's going to be there is a book giveaway starting right now. The first 2 people, US only, this is only open to the US, to join the mailing list at www.dhcermeno.com will win an autographed copy of Coffee and Cedar. Very generously autographed.
And it will be personalized as well.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yes, absolutely.
That is perfect. Well, also, you have something that I think is really exciting going on, and that's that your book is now going to be a play.
Yes, I was approached by people telling me how much they enjoyed the story, and that how cool would it be to do it as a one-act play? So with COVID, yes, there's the poster. Exactly. It'll be at Orlando Fringe now in May. So with COVID, as many of us did, we had lots of spare time. So on the evenings that I was at home, I started looking at how would I actually transform this into a play, because I've never considered myself a playwright. I'd never written a play before. But with a lot of encouragement, gave it to some local playwrights for them to take a look at, and others. I was able to get a lot of good feedback and put this into a good workable form. And because my partner is actually involved in the theater community, we got a director that he's worked with before, and she took a look at it, and we started working on it last fall. And then we entered the lottery for Orlando Fringe, and as luck would have it, we were selected.
That's really wonderful.
That's pretty competitive, isn't it?
It is. I mean, with it being a lottery, with the amount of requests that they get, and a lot of people that enter it, yes, and I was really pleased and thrilled that we were accepted into the Fringe Festival.
That's
and
really cool.
who stars in the show?
So we have a local author, John Jimenez, who's going to be playing the lead of the David character. My partner Russell Trahan will be playing the grandfather.
That's really great.
Yes. So I'm really excited. And then we have a newcomer. His name is Cameron Sawyer, and he will be playing a very poignant role in the play as well. So not to give too much away. And then it's directed by Jack Ledoux and stage managed by Cindy Shervin. So we're very excited.
I don't know if you saw Paul Hollis said, awesome, congratulations. Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Do you know Paul? He's also an author.
No, I'm afraid I don't.
He writes the Hollow Man series. It's an amazing series because it's based on his life as an undercover agent during the 70s, during all of the trouble with bombings and everything, all the terrorists.
You can hear all about it in episode 2 of Meet the Author podcast.
Fantastic.
Actually, you can.
Fantastic.
But see, this is kind of based on your life also, the book that you wrote. So the same kind of thing, except you weren't a secret agent. Exactly. Yes, and like I had mentioned, is that my grandfather, my 2 great uncles, they were all very instrumental in my life, and that's what I wanted this story to be. And of course, I was speaking from my own experience. And then one thing actually that a lot of readers had told me is that they said that this book was very unique in a sense, because it's dealing with a father figure giving advice and giving guidance to their grandson or to another. It's going from one male to another male, because a lot of things that we find is we find fathers to daughters, mothers to daughters, mothers to sons, but there's very few anything that goes from fathers or grandfathers to sons. And like I said, I was only speaking from my own experience, but I had never thought of it that way before. So I was really happy that it was speaking to other groups as well that could benefit from it. Well, yeah, I think it's really important to have a strong father figure in your life. And that's why it's...
I'm not sure what that is.
I don't think...
Is that a face? I think it's a face.
I think...
A smiley face? I'm not
maybe
sure
that's
what you're
a
saying,
smiley
Paul.
face, Paul. Hello, Tom Nally. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Tom.
Hello.
I think that's really important. What you were just talking about there is about father handing down advice to a father figure, for grandfather and uncle, or your actual father.
Yes.
I think that's so important for young men.
It is.
I mean,
It is.
I think that it is something that you don't always hear about or see,
Which is true. And, I grew up in a Latin household, surrounded by a very loving family. I mean, my mother, my sister, my grandmother, my great aunts, everyone. But it's and being a Latin family, there are many times that you see affection between male figures, because my grandfather was very affectionate with me. I mean, and I with him. But a lot of times we're very afraid to even explore that. It seems like as a society, we're just afraid to show that men show the vulnerable side of men, which, again, was something that was second nature to me. And I was only speaking from my experience, but I was just so happy it spoke to so many.
Yeah. Do you think that's because your heritage is Spanish? And I do mean Spanish as in from Spain. Yeah.
I do believe it has a lot to do with that, yes. And but also just, I mean, society as a whole, I mean, regardless of what your cultural background is, I mean, very rarely do we ever really show the vulnerability of men.
I agree. I also think, you know, I lived in Mexico for 3 years, and I had a lot of international friends there because I taught at the Centro. I taught at Berlitz, and in order to teach at Berlitz, it had to be your mother tongue. So I taught English. They had Russian there, so we had a Russian teacher and a French teacher taught French, and I mean, so it was all, you know, different people from all over the world. And I would have parties, and it was really interesting to watch that Mexicans are very close up. They're close up talkers, and they hold hands. The men hold hands walking down the street, and the women hold hands walking down the street. Friends, just friends. And which to an American is like, what? And also to a lot of your Germanic types, like, actually not the Russians, to be honest with you, they're very touchy-feely, gregarious people. But like, I know we had a teacher from Switzerland and another from Germany, and it would be funny when I would have a party to see, you know, the people from the Romance countries would back other people into the corner. Because in America, we have a very strong personal space. And I don't know, I think it just lends more to having a more intimate relationship with men if that's modeled culturally, you know.
Yeah, agreed.
But I think it's something that's really, really important for fathers and sons too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And here's Patricia. She's the mama of one of our hosts he's on Monday nights.
Hi, Patricia.
Real Talk with Dom.
So how do people get a hold of you and hear about you?
So if you go to my website, www.dhcermeno.com, there it is. I am also on Facebook. I have individual pages for Facebook for my author page, as well as I have another one for my book, Coffee and Cedar. Okay. And then I'm also on Twitter at D.H. CERMENO as well. So
you have an email?
I'm sorry?
In your email address?
And there's my email address as well, yes.
The email is dhcermeno @embarkmail, that's embarkmail.com.
Okay.
Yes.
That sounds great. And I know that he would love to hear from you. I feel
absolutely
calling you DH, but
I know.
I will. I'll call you DH.
Yes.
DH would love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
And so we've talked quite a bit about Coffee and Cedar and what that was based on. Hello, Dom, Patricia's son.
Hi, Dom.
And now maybe you could tell us a little bit about Rising Sunsets. And
sure. Absolutely. Rising Sunsets, as I mentioned before, was my novel that I wrote before Coffee and Cedar, based on my time in Japan. So this book was, I took my diaries and transformed it into a story, but it's basically the tale of a young American goes to Japan to teach English to school children. And during that time, he meets and falls in love with a Japanese girl, and they have to keep their affair a secret because of his position in the community and because her parents' conservative views. And so it's very Mitch Albom meets Nicholas Sparks. That makes sense.
Yes, it does, actually.
So, and this one was a lot of fun too.
Thank you, Dominic.
So yeah, but that one was a lot of fun to write. And
Now that one was an award winner, right? You won an
It
award for
is.
that one?
That is an award.
yes, it is. Actually, that one I had won a silver medal in fiction from the Florida Association of Publishers and Authors. Coffee and Cedar also was an award winner as well, from the same organization. That one got a gold medal. So I was really, really pleased with that. I was very, very humbled and very honored by that.
That's
That's
cool.
really saying something to
It
get an
is.
award from authors and publishers. You know, that's
Thank you. Thank
That's
you. Thank you, Sue. I appreciate that. No, I was very humbled. I was very humbled.
I'm sure. So anyway, we kind of interrupted you as you were
Yes.
talking about Rising Sunsets.
Um,
You
But
said
no,
Newton Sparks.
but what I also took from the reason I also wrote that book is because teaching in Japan and being in that environment and that country with the Japanese, I really, it was so special and was so enjoyable that entire year that I was there, that I just had such an appreciation for that culture and for the people themselves. I mean, the Japanese are so warm and so welcoming and so generous, and you know, they made me feel like I was one of them as far as how much they took care of me, you know, being there by myself. I mean, I was 21 by myself, didn't know a soul. And
You were a
Yeah.
baby.
exactly. I mean, I think about it now, I'm like, how in the world did I do that when I was 21? I mean, it's, but you know, being dropped in the middle, really technically the middle of nowhere. I was an hour outside of Hiroshima in a very small town called Hongo, and it was there were 11,000 people. That was it.
Wow.
So 10,999 Japanese people and me. So no one really spoke English except for those who were in the school system, and so I had to learn Japanese just on the fly.
Oh.
Yes.
Did they notice you?
Oh, no, not at all. I blended in so easily. Yeah. But you know, it was what was really interesting about that as well is it gave me an appreciation for anyone who really does not know how to read or write, because nothing made any sense to me. When I'd be walking down the streets, all the signs were written in kanji or katakana and hiragana. So, I mean, I didn't know where anything was. So it gave me a new appreciation of just and not to take for granted, the ability to read and write. So that's what it was everything that I felt comfortable with and felt, you know, that I knew and I mean, I felt like I had gone through the looking glass as soon as I got to Japan, because everything was just completely reversed. Just cultural norms and of course not being able to speak and understand the language until I was there for a little while. And that's what I kept on saying, that this was the basis and the makings for a good story. And so that's why I took what I learned while I was there and tried to form it into a story that I hope that people would enjoy. And from those that have read it, they have enjoyed it, and they have even said to me that there were things about the Japanese culture that they never knew about, that they were so that they found so interesting, that they learned while reading the book. So I was really gratified for that.
Barbara wants to know, what years did you live there?
I'm going to date myself now.
Are you
so.
trying to figure
I think that's the key here.
I got there July of 1993, and I left in July of 1994.
That's really interesting.
As soon as you could read and figure out how to get out.
Exactly.
We used to live in California, and we went to Disneyland a lot. We had annual passes, so we were there all the time. We bugged them to death. And but we had friends that worked there, and they got sent to Japan when Tokyo opened up its Disneyland. and he was the head of safety. And when they came back, they said that the reason, if you go to Disneyland or something like that, and there are a lot of Japanese people, they will sit right beside you on a bench or something,
Yes.
And he said the reason that they do that is that they're not being rude. It's just that if they haven't been introduced to you, you don't exist.
Mhm.
So it's just that.
Exactly.
Sorry. Take over.
Are you all right?
No problem. Yeah. So Barbara says, so no cell phones yet.
No cell phones. No cell phones.
Barbara, remind you, we grew up with no cell phones. There were seat belts in the cars. Yeah. It was like,
And everyone survived. All 6 of the children
yeah.
are still alive. With no seatbelts.
And Joan, I want to mention when you were talking about Disneyland and when they were going over to Tokyo, I have to tell you that with us being living here in Florida and going to Disney and being exposed to Disney, and the training that all the cast members go through to be nice and to be courteous and to go out of their way to help you, that was second nature to the Japanese, because that's just how they are as a people anyway. So frankly, when I did go to Tokyo Disneyland while I was there, everything that I was exposed to while I was in that park was exactly what I was exposed to outside of the park. So it was unreal just how much they do take care of you and how much they attend to those that they serve. I mean, it's unreal.
So it would be like living in Disney World.
Pretty much.
Having people be nice.
As far as the service is concerned, yes, absolutely.
Did you see that Netflix documentary about the Buddhist monk?
No, I didn't.
Oh my gosh. He's in Japan, and he lives in that town that was devastated by the tsunami, the last big tsunami. And we all remember those visuals.
Mm-hmm.
And he and his wife, I mean, I just cried when I watched it. They were so full of love and so kind and so wonderful, and help here's.
And a lot of the Barbara says, and a lot of the Japanese men wear suits.
Yes.
Yes. I was like, aren't they dying of the heat?
Yes, they are actually.
But it's the proper thing to do.
It's the proper thing to do. I mean, even when I have to tell you this, because even when I went to McDonald's, you'd walk into a McDonald's and they'd bow to you when you walked in. Now try to get them to do that here. I mean,
you have to punch them in the
At
stomach.
McDonald's.
McDonald's.
Yeah, get them to be
Courteous at
nice
all.
and courteous. But yeah, I think Japan is amazing. You were brave to go there when you were 21.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
and look at what you have now.
So Rising Sunsets is a result of that experience.
Yeah.
That's really
It is
cool.
a result of that experience. Yes.
That launched your path.
It launched my path. Yes.
Well, what we like to try to get the order right here at McDonald's.
That's hard enough, right? The same language, right?
Well, I know the thing that you should really watch that documentary. I can't remember the name of it now, but
No, I can't either.
and that that is our dog.
That's
Sorry
our dog in the
about
background. No one, don't be scared.
that. Oh,
I'm writing this down because I will look it up.
okay. What they talked about in that a lot is that he was helping people that had a lot of ghosts around them after the tsunami. And he was trying to help them to get past that. And then, okay, George has a question for you. George Dismukes also is one of our great authors. He's going to have a show on Netflix.
Oh, wow.
Probably from his book.
Hopefully, right?
Right? His book will be coming out, correct me if I'm wrong, George, but I think in July, and it's called The Song of the Siren. and it sounds amazing. But he says he tuned in late. What part of Japan?
Well, first of all, George, congratulations. That's wonderful.
I know.
That is fantastic. Congratulations. I lived in a small town 1 hour outside of Hiroshima, and the name of it is Hongo. And actually, Hongo really is not its own little town anymore. I looked it up. There was a larger city right next door called Mihara, and Hongo is now like a suburb of Mihara. So, but yes, that's where I was.
They're hoping that Netflix will pick up his series that they're doing.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic.
Iron Song is the name.
Said it wrong, George. I'm sorry.
About that.
You're welcome. And also, George, what you didn't hear is that D.H. is putting on a play of one of his books, got selected to be in a play in Orlando. You want to put up that banner again?
Well, I'd like to.
Not the banner, I meant the picture. Here we go.
There we go.
We'll have to take down the other banner. There you go. And this is his book that he's written and is being produced as a play, Coffee and Cedar. And everybody in the Orlando area, even all the way out here to Tampa, should go and see it because we're not that far.
Yes, please try. Absolutely. I would love for y'all to come.
What day is that going to be? What day?
It starts on May 9th. Well, the festival itself is May 18th through the 31st, but the dates of my play, which are on the flyer, it starts May 19th, and the last performance is May 29th. But if you go to my website, there is an event page specifically for the Orlando Fringe Festival play.
You're green
George is
with
green
envy.
with envy. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Thank you.
It is. It's really exciting, and we're so happy.
Anybody in the Orlando area, we're going to need to cut away for a commercial, I'm afraid. So you stay right where you're at there, DH.
And we'll be bringing on our second.
Oh, one more thing. We were looking for places that you are, where people can find your books and so on. IndieBookSource.com. IndieBookSource.com. Don't forget that.
And you can find Paul Hollis and George Dismukes. They are also wonderful.
They are also on there.
Yeah.
So we're going to cut away for our commercial, and when we come back, we'll be bringing in author David Perlmutter.
Yep.
So
Fantastic.
sit tight, folks. Nobody go away.
WLFE-DB.com, where you can find vodcast shows, podcasts, and more. So go check out WLFE-DB.com, where talk radio is a whole lot better. Our shows are your shows, and that there makes for a great talk radio.
WLFE-DB Radio is on Spotify with all its great shows like Across the Pond, Inside the Drag Closet, Step into the Paranormal, Just Cindy, Where's My Sage, Unfiltered Talks with Bryce, Metal Mayhem ROC, Paratalk Radio, Real Talk with Dom, and more. So download the Spotify app today to stay connected to all your WLFE-DB radio shows.
Join us at WLFE-DB.com for upcoming shows and so much more. Like and follow us on Facebook at WLFE-DB Radio.
Well, hello there, kids! Have you started watching Inside the Drag Closet, the interactive vodcast where we talk about all things drag? And some things that aren't? Well, you should. You can join us every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on WLFE-DB Radio. We hope to see you then. See you, kids!
Hey guys and dolls, this is Casey DeVille, the better half of DeVille Inc., Baltimore, Maryland. If you're ever in Baltimore, stop in and see me and Tony. Invisible Bree, 5920 Eastern Avenue, Baltimore, Maryland, 21224. Give us a call if you're in the area at 410-400-9641, or look us up on the web at DeVilleInc.com. DeVille Inc., where we specialize in you.
Merch? Did someone say merch? Oh, yeah. Life just got sweeter now that WLFE-DB has merchandise. Show your support by purchasing your t-shirts for WLFE, Paratalk Radio, Inside the Drag Closet, and more. But it doesn't stop there. T-shirts, coffee mugs, tanks, buttons, cloth bags, and more. Go to WLFE-DB.com. On the top bar, click on the merchandise tab and bam, there you go.
You're listening to WLFE DB Radio. Now back to our program.
There you go. Hi. How are you doing?
Hello, David.
Hi.
2 quick questions for DH before we start with you. Well, 2 comments. George says, congratulations, stage plays are as complex to produce as a TV series, so congratulations. And Barbara had a question, are they allowing a full theater since COVID?
As of right now, what we've been told is that they're probably going to fill only a third of the theater. So, but that may change within the next month or so, depending on CDC guidelines. So at the very least, you know, they'll only be seating a third of the theater itself.
Okay, cool.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Well, welcome, David. We're so happy that you can be on the show. Hello. We're excited to hear all about you. You want to tell us how you started writing and what prompted you to do that?
Well, mostly what prompted me was that I was always doing it. Like, you have pictures of me doing it as a child right from the start. It's usually how these things end up.
That's true. That is how it usually starts.
It wasn't really until I became an adult that I discovered basically that people did this for a living.
Yeah.
And you were like, yeah.
Well, there was a bit of that. Like, that was where the fiction thing came out of. But I wondered what I was going to write about. And then, like, when I've always been a big reader, and I've been a big supporter of the public library in Winnipeg here. Happened that I'm at the old Centennial Library. I gravitated towards the section on history and culture, and I really got interested in animation because I'd grown up watching it, and I'd gotten very interested in knowing the differences between the characters and the approaches in the studios. It goes all the way back because we have pictures of me Halloween costume with Mickey Mouse and Popeye. So
let's put up. I'm going to put up your cover for your encyclopedia. It's going to block you out for a minute, but so we'll see what the book cover looks like. It's the Encyclopedia of American Animated Television Shows.
Yes. And
you're in Canada, right?
Winnipeg.
Yes. Yeah, that's kind of the irony of it, where it all goes. But I kind of take heart from the fact that when I was going to university, I discovered there were a couple of Canadian authors who really influenced the world in terms of scholarship in that sense. Marshall McLuhan, on one hand, is the better known one. He was famous for exploring the media and like its effects on people and how we process it. And I took heart from reading about how he said that he called the animated cartoons the optimal mode of television because because they subscribe to all of the ethics of the way people interact and communicate with media. The other guy who was influenced was Northrop Frye. He was more of an English literature scholar, but he wrote a very influential book called Anatomy of Criticism, which deals a lot with the origins of media genres and how they. And I was struck because I've always been kind of a viewer of television animation. I was kind of surprised somewhat that there wasn't a whole lot that had been written on a scholarly level. I mean, there had been some books on media effects on children, and then a couple odd books on Walt Disney. But the books on the media effects on children were very biased. Like literally, I almost think that some of them was like talk radio in a book almost. And I really didn't think they were being fair. I wondered how I was going to do it. And then when I got into university, especially when I got into working as an undergrad at University of Winnipeg and as a graduate student at University of Manitoba, I was fortunate to have professors who believed that there was some merit in what I was doing, and that there was a future analysis of television animation independent of theatrical animation, which come before it and is still ongoing. It's just the matter of exhibition is really where it tapers off. So I ended up writing my MA thesis on aspects of television animation, and that was expanded into my first book, American Toons and a History of Television Animation. The encyclopedia is kind of a supplement to it. It's supposed to be like it builds on the. Yeah.
Here's the history of television animation. America Tunes In, and then again, here's the encyclopedia. Now, tell us about your book giveaway. This is the one, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
And I was fortunate also as well in terms of. I wasn't entirely sure about how I was going to approach it, but I read some other books. People have influenced me in terms of how they had written about television, how they were approaching it.
Well, it looks really interesting.
Encyclopedia has its origins in an earlier version in an earlier book called Television Cartoon Shows by Hal Erickson. A lot of what I was doing was kind of expanding on it. I was trying to focus more specifically on the animation that was produced in North America, because he was dealing with all the Japan and so forth. And there's nothing wrong with anime, but it's not something that I really know. It's not something I really can interpret very well. Especially,
you said before, there's a lot of books on that, right? Already?
Yes. He wanted
and the dub, and I don't think that all the time the dubbing favors it, because Japanese is such a very different language from English.
That's true.
The interesting thing about all these programs is that they're all of a particular genre, but they all they all exist in these little universes, the ground rules and very like aspects of culture and whatnot. And you can't, and it's not really something you can understand unless you've seen the program, and especially if you've seen all or most of the episodes. And it's hard. It's hard for sometimes for people to understand that. Netflix has changed it. Netflix has changed the game a lot because now I can watch the entire series in one go.
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
And then you know everything all at once. Whereas when I was growing up, you got it once a week and that was it.
Right. That's true.
Yep.
So you had, or if you were lucky with some of them, they were syndicated or they aired on cable 5 days, and that made it a little. But it's almost the same way. Like you have to understand the way Dickens' universe works, or Faulkner's universe works, or any author that has a particular style or concept. You really have to get to understand. My most favorite cartoon series. This is a very hard thing to do because I don't want to be kind of choosy, but you got 3 of them on the cover of the encyclopedia.
Okay. Well, Barb says hers has always been Animaniacs. And for those of you that are listening to the podcast and not watching this vodcast, Barbara had asked, what is your most favorite cartoon series? And David said, that's really hard to say.
Well, that one too, I know that. That's the original one, I mean, not...
Yeah, the original, yeah.
She means the original.
Yeah.
That's really where it's kind of been difficult for me, because I see that they take these programs that I liked, and I like the Who said, I'm trying to get the key to 50 million fables.
Yeah.
And then they just decide that, well, we're going to take the old prostitute out and have them go try and do a few more scores or something like that. even though it's not the best thing, like,
right,
it's not the best analogy, I know, but like pimps don't necessarily care about the well-being of their prostitutes. So
No, they don't.
That's true. Where can we?
That's kind of
example.
Yes. Well, it's like, I think especially Warner has kind of been bad on that. But I think part of that is because they owe so much money to AT&T for buying them out. They want to make as much money as they can out of these things.
So if you're listening to David speak, you understand that he knows his stuff. He knows what he's talking about. And believe me, if you are interested in the animated series of North America, you have got to buy his book.
Yeah, both of them, actually. Both of those two. Yeah.
I would also like to say at this time that if you ever buy an author's book, we would love for you to give us a good review if you like the book, and tell people what it is that you liked specifically about that book, because then other people who may like that sort of thing will see that in the review and they'll say, I want to read that book. And you'll be helping all of us authors by doing that. So if you read a book, you like the book, please review the book.
And besides indiebooksource.com, that's indiebooksource.com, where you guys are both actually listed.
As are Paul Hollis and David and Paul and George
and George.
Mm-hmm.
Where else can we can reach you? Like at Twitter, right? They can
yes,
sign hook up with you on Twitter at David Perlmutt 10.
Yep.
And Facebook at the facebook.com David K. Perlmutter and Friends.
Yep.
Yeah, I just started that fairly
Okay.
recent.
All right. And if they want to contact you by email, it's dkperlmutter@gmail.com.
Mhm.
Right?
And did we talk about the book giveaway?
Yes, we did.
All right, let's talk about it again.
Yep. First 3 people to subscribe to David's newsletter at davidperlmutter.substack.com will win a copy of the encyclopedia. Now, is that a hardbound copy? Or no, those are ebooks.
Those are
Yeah,
ebooks.
Ebooks, that's right. Okay.
yeah, I've got a PDF of the book
Yeah,
Right.
it'll be an ebook.
as it was published.
Yes.
I didn't
Yep.
get that on the banner properly. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so
So-
let's say that again. It's an ebook.
Ebook copy. First 3 people to subscribe
And
to
the
David's
reason for that,
newsletter.
people, is because he lives in Manitoba, Canada, and honest to goodness, to mail something from Canada to the United States costs an arm and a leg.
Well, actually, on the banner, I did say ebook giveaway, so I actually didn't want to be redundant.
You didn't read that.
So it's the ebook.
Yeah, I envy you guys being in Florida, because you don't have to be worried about freezing to death.
Yeah.
That's like,
I don't know. It was pretty cold this morning.
Oh my gosh. You cannot say it was pretty cold this morning to someone who lives in Canada.
It was 61. I'm
My
sorry.
Lord.
well, yeah, we've got like we have winter 10 months of the year.
Yeah. There you go.
I mean, Winnipeg is down in the southern part of Manitoba, but we still like one advantage we have is that we can go when it's possible to do that. We can go down and visit North Dakota and Minnesota, and no problem. But
That's one of our daughters. Okay. Susan said we just fried to death.
She's
here
in
at-
Florida.
oh yeah, I know about the dog days. The Atlanta
yeah.
Rhythm section did that song. The Atlanta Rhythm section did about how hot it gets in the summer. Yes,
There
yeah,
you
there are advantages and disadvantages to everything.
And Barbara said, we used to live in Michigan. We understand even more to the point, Barbara, we used to live in upstate New York. So we really get it. It snowed most of the time there. It started snowing in September or October, and it would snow all the
So
way
probably very
sometimes
much like
until
Winnipeg.
April. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of
So
snow.
I think that's
all your snow.
that's kind like
That's true.
it's kind it has advantages and disadvantages. Like I said, like Northrop Frye, I mentioned earlier, he had this theory about how Canadian literature developed. The garrison mentality, that like the urban or more settled areas were constantly on guard from being attacked by indigenous people or some such thing. And he felt that was because we were people who were always having, as the anthem says, we were having to stand on guard in case something happened. So there's a level of alertness. I've tried to capture a bit of that in my fiction because I had so many my superhero characters based in Canada and in Manitoba, as a couple of them.
Before we let you go off of here, let's show a couple of your other books.
Your other books. Yeah, I was just going to read them off. Yep.
Yeah, we got Honey and Salt.
Yep, that's the specifically Winnipeg, Manitoba connection.
Yeah.
Because I would say about a good portion of that is set in downtown Winnipeg and in the Millennium Library, which is our central downtown hub library, figures prominently in that.
And it's not a recipe book.
No, it is not.
Honey and Salt, yes.
So it's a borrowed thing so much. Like borrowed the title from Carl Sandburg but I made sure to have it, like I always have to have the title explained somehow.
Right.
And it's
Let's Be Buddies. That's a
Yes.
Jefferson Ball adventure.
yes, she's my central character in terms of a lot of my fiction, and it ties back into my influence on television animation because I'm a big Rocky and Bullwinkle fan, obviously, you know that. And I also am an admirer of the early Hanna-Barbera cartoons. And
Me
like the one thing those said, like it was the old comedy stuff. It's always about physical opposites.
That's right.
Yeah.
Laurel and Hardy and
Yes.
Abbott and Costello and so forth. And
Yeah.
the animation, it's the same sort of thing. You had the big stupid person and the small short one.
It's kind of like
And
this.
and that was how it ended up being like that. Jefferson Ball is the Paul Dent's one, and her friend Hamilton Pomeranian is the short intelligent.
Now you might get some fan mail from some flounder.
Yes.
And here's another one that you have. It's Nothing About Us Without Us.
Yeah.
That's the Adventures of the Cartoon Republican Army.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that I was one, like it was an outgrowth of the novel I did, Orthicon. It was all the idea about they were animated cartoon characters not knowing that they were basically that they had the ability to gain civil rights, or that it was necessary for them to get civil rights. And so a lot of that is kind of based on that. Not exclusively based on the civil rights movement of Martin Luther King Jr. and company, but also, as the title suggests, by the Irish Republican Army and by the American Indian movement and the Black Panthers. I was trying to make sure that, as with Orthicon, that it was presented fairly. It was kind of as an oral history thing. So I set myself up basically as like Studs Terkel or somebody like that coming in with a tape recorder and asking them to spill.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Cool.
I love Studs Terkel.
But a lot of, and I tried to make sure that I try to make the characters recognizable, but also, but in a way so that the copyrights wouldn't be violated.
Barbara, I might have missed this, but are you also an artist, animation?
I wish I was. Seriously, I wish that I was. Because, if it were possible for me to do this as an animated, all this stuff as animated stuff or as comic books, then I would certainly do that. I've met a lot of people on Facebook and in the comic book field who are doing very inspiring work. There's a whole indie comic scene, just like there's an indie book scene. So I met some of those people.
There is a whole bunch of indie, and we've met some of them too. Our son, I think I mentioned to you, is draws. He's an artist, and we've gone to a lot of conventions and met a lot of the artists that actually work in the Marvel universe and stuff like that. We met a lot of those guys, but we've met a lot of the indie guys that are out there doing their own thing. And they go to these conventions and they sell their own books there. That's
kind of where I've sort of been lacking. We have annual science fiction, an annual science fiction fantasy convention called KeyCon, because Manitoba was known as the Keystone Province, center of the universe. And then we have some various local Comic-Con stuff. I would try. I've been like I've attended them in the past, and I've wanted to be working with them. I was hoping maybe that actually I would get involved with them, and I may end up doing so later on once
we
every well once. But I'm not going to go up. I'm not going to go the route of asking for things to be normal, because normal is not the same for everybody.
That's
I mean,
true.
that's one of the things I learned from watching animation. Like everyone's not the same. Everyone has different concerns.
Right.
Everyone has different feelings about things. Everybody is going to approach a problem differently than everyone else.
Yes.
And no one's point of view is less valid because of that. It's just a different point of view.
Thank you.
That's
right.
very true.
That's very
people, and that's one of the things that people don't get about animation. I was dealing, like I said, I was dealing with those books. I looked up a whole bunch of articles from the New York Times back in the 60s, microfiche, and there was like the most biased and uninformed people writing the most outlandish theories about where this stuff all came from.
Barbara's agreeing with you.
And it's the same sort of thing. Like it was the same sort of thing when jazz came out, when rock and roll came out.
Oh, I remember.
All these people. There were all these people who were basically afraid about their daughters getting pregnant by people they didn't know, and they transposed it onto this mythology of Africanism. They assumed that black people were savages who danced to tom-tom drums and whatnot, and they didn't really they disconnected it from the reality of living in America as a black person. Whereas if you spend a lot of time listening to people like Duke Ellington, Count Basie, or Fletcher Henderson, he doesn't get enough respect, and I like him a lot.
Wow.
They were actually very sophisticated and thoughtful men who took great pains to conceive a particular sound that identified them as being apart from other people. And again, it's the same thing with the animators that I admire. I can tell a Craig McCracken show apart from a Hanna-Barbera show pretty easily, because there's a particular style and approach. And that's what I found when I got into reading speculative fiction, hoping to start a career doing that. It's all about developing a style, developing an idea, getting the skills to develop the idea, and then, because animation is a collaborative medium, it's about trying to find the people who will help you.
Yes.
And I found, and people have done that, because I found Hanna-Barbera did that, G. Ward did that, Craig McCracken did that, and and people know their stuff, people recognize them.
Well, I've got to say you're really deep, David, and you've touched on some things that are really near and dear to my heart. And one of those things is that we all need to respect each other. We don't all have to agree with each other,
right?
But we can certainly respect each other and appreciate each other's views in the way we express ourselves. And if we would listen, I think we would learn something. So
I think that's kind of what's what is missing in the equation. It's like we isolate ourselves. Like the internet has kind of encouraged people to isolate themselves, just in the same way that COVID-19 forced us to isolate physically. And we don't, when that happens, we don't necessarily lose a lot of the connection to the wider community. And when I listen to a lot of old jazz and R&B stuff, I hear them including, like they riff on contemporary events, and they have this particular argot, this way of creating metaphors, and which could only have come out of the particular community as it existed at that time.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That's
and
right.
And television animation is the same almost, because it's not just about that they borrow so much from the outside community that influences it. They also create their own communities. They have their own fictional towns, their own fictional countries and universes, and their own particular esprit de corps that is not at all the same as anything that's in the real world.
Yeah.
And it's always interesting to see it and see about that it's far out, but at the same time it's recognizable.
Well, I'd like to put up again both DH's and David's giveaways so people won't forget about them.
Oh, okay.
Now that I'm gonna make him work for this.
Okay, for David.
And we need the
it's
address.
an ebook, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll get that up here in just a second.
And those are some of his favorite cartoons. I forget who asked, but maybe it was Barb.
That would be the ebook giveaway. The first 3 people to subscribe to David's newsletter at davidperlmutter.substack.com will get an ebook copy of that wonderful encyclopedia. That's got to be really interesting. I was tempted to try to do it myself, but
He really knows his stuff. I'm telling you, that's
amazing.
I've learned
really
a lot
amazing.
just listening to you.
Well, it's like, I mean, it's at the end of Ray Bradbury's novel Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah.
There's a scene that explains that there are these people who have committed to memory volume. They've saved the books from being burned. They try to commit the memory. And I've kind of seen myself in that role when it comes to my research about animation, because I think because television animation in particular, because television has until fairly recently has been seen as kind of a form of ephemera. There wasn't any way of preserving it in terms of permanent representation until well into its history, and by then a great amount had been lost because it was all live stuff like this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
no tapes.
And even with streaming coming in, as I said, there's this temptation to watch the entire series and then forget about it and not think seriously about what the intent of the producer was.
Right. Well, we're running a little short on time now.
Yeah. It's okay.
It's okay. But let's get over, and we're going to, DH, why don't you unmute? And we're going to get your here's the book that you're giving away, right?
Yes.
And do you want to mention that giveaway?
So yes, the first 2 people who sign up for my newsletter on my site, www.dhcermeno.com, I'll be sending you and US only, I'll be sending you a personalized and autographed copy of Coffee and Cedar.
Now, is that a hardbound?
It'll be a paperback.
Paperback. Okay, paperback.
Yes. And actually, I'll also include a copy of Rising Sunsets as well.
Ooh,
Wonderful.
All right, a little bonus.
Wonderful about his time in Japan. So that,
Yes.
yeah.
That is exciting.
And I just wanted to say also to David, our family, you would love our family because we have these big discussions. We have 6 children, 14 grandchildren, and before COVID, I get so tired of saying that. Pre-COVID, we would all get together and have dinner, and oh my gosh, all of our kids and our kids-in-law all know every word to every animated series and to every comic book ever known to man, and they discuss it, and they will actually talk to each other as the different characters. They pay attention and they watch it more than once. Now, I think that they would really love your book. But yes, that's been our family life.
Pretty much, right?
Our son, when he was growing up, would watch a cartoon, and then he would come running to me and say, Mom, I just watched this, and tell me the whole show word for word. So it took just as long to tell it as it did to watch it. And he's still like that, and his sisters married men like that. So yeah, it's a crazy dinner table.
That's
We're
for
not
sure.
even Latin, DH.
We're not? I thought we were. We lived in Miami.
We're
We live in
Irish.
Tampa. We might be. Well, gentlemen, it's been really good. We've enjoyed talking with you. We've enjoyed meeting you. We've enjoyed hearing all about your work.
Yep.
And we're going to have you on again sometime, I'm sure.
And we did go
If you wanna
over,
come
but
on.
that's okay. It's
Yeah, we
no
went over.
problem.
No problem. It's cool.
We've got the extra time.
Yeah. So
And I'm
anything
just gonna
else
say,
you guys want to add?
David, I just want to say your discussion was absolutely fascinating, and for what it's worth, I also love Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Yeah.
Oh, me too.
Yeah,
Right?
that's what's so incredible about these older programs is that they were built to last.
Absolutely.
I think they understood that maybe they didn't know at the time that they were making something that was going to keep going on, but
They did.
Yeah, they did. So
whereas with
Also like Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner.
yes.
yeah,
I mean, I love them. And when we traveled through New Mexico and Arizona, I would constantly say to the kids, oh my God, look, it's a Roadrunner. Plus, I also pointed out every cactus. And they finally said to me, we've seen the last 1800 saguaro cactus, Mom. We don't need to see
But we
another
never
one."
did have an anvil fall on
Yeah.
us.
yeah, you see, with the better known cartoons, you can name drop like that and people get it.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah, it's true.
but like one of my favorite songs is Dionne Warwick's Do You Know the Way, Jose by Burt Bacharach and Hal David.
Yeah.
And she talks, one of the lines that really struck out in there is that, and all the stars that never were are parking cars and pumping gas.
Mhm.
And I wanted to kind of be, in my fiction at least, I wanted to be talking about the ones that are parking cars and pumping gas.
Yeah.
I just
There
had a
you go.
picture of Bullwinkle filling up the tank on the car. So,
Yeah.
Natasha.
Or Natasha. Yeah.
Oh, Natasha.
All right, guys. It's been great. And if you want to stick around to when we're done here, we'll chat a little bit. But we're going to wind it up. Do you want to tell a little bit about the shows, other shows on the network here?
Oh, yeah. I got so carried away with this discussion. I forgot my job. Besides our show, I'd really like to tell you about Just Cindy, a Psychic, at 8 p.m. on Thursdays, and Everything But Nothing with T. Roy at 10. And on Friday, we have Card Pulls and Coffee with Lindsay at 7. And the Skeptical Help Bar with Kenny Biddle, who he really brings all the rest of us paranormal out there people down.
He's very
into
skeptical.
Reality.
Yeah.
Yes. And then we also have Paratalk Radio with Ted and Cindy at 8 o'clock on Mondays, and Real Talk with Dom at 10 o'clock on Mondays, and The Creepy Parlor with Genevieve at 7 on Tuesdays, which is the show we were on last night. And, that our dog took over the show. And Where's My Sage with Mike and Christy at 8. And we have a few more comments here that I think people want to get in there before they. Oh, okay. So Barbara says, great podcast. Susan says, My Little Pony still runs through my head. Oh, and Sue said, we actually have 10 conversations at the same time at that dinner table, which is absolutely the honest truth.
And then she says, me too, to that conversation, I guess.
I'm not sure what me too is.
Awesome
podcast. And Paul Hollis says, thanks, Joan and Rob. Thanks, DH and David.
And thank you everybody for tuning in and hanging in there tonight.
Yep.
And let's just get over to where we're going to go. We want to bid you all.
See you till the next time. Yeah.
Until next time, that's all, folks.
Haha.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DB.com.
You've been listening to WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.